We live in a world obsessed with pressure. Hustle harder, move faster, compete relentlessly, fight for everything. Society tells us that success belongs to those who exhaust themselves chasing it. But what if the ancient Stoics discovered something radically different? What if manifestation is not about forcing reality, but about mastering yourself? What if the secret to attracting everything you want is not frantic action, but disciplined calm? The Stoics thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus were not passive dreamers. They were warriors of the mind, and they understood something most people miss. When you align your thoughts, emotions, and actions with wisdom, life begins to cooperate. Today, we're diving into 10 Stoic rules that manifest everything you want. These are not mystical shortcuts. These are mental disciplines. Each one removes resistance. Each one builds internal power, and together, they transform you into someone who naturally attracts opportunity, respect, peace, and success. Master yourself, and the world responds. Let's begin. The first Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is learning the art of detached desire. Most people think intense. Desire creates results. The Stoics understood the opposite. The more emotionally dependent you are on an outcome, the more unstable your energy becomes. And instability weakens judgment, clouds thinking, and creates unnecessary pressure. Desperation is not attractive, not to people, not to opportunity, and not to life itself. Detached desire does not mean you stop wanting great things. It means you stop tying your identity to whether or not those things arrive. You can pursue wealth without believing you are nothing without it. You can seek love without believing you are incomplete alone. You can chase excellence without collapsing if you fall short. Epictetus emphasized that freedom comes from wanting what depends on you, not what lies outside your control. The outcome is never fully yours. Your effort is. When you obsess over results, you tighten mentally. Your decisions become reactive. You rush, you second-guess yourself. But when you desire something while remaining internally steady, your action becomes clean, calm, measured, strategic. Think of someone who enters a negotiation with quiet confidence. They want the deal, but they do not need it. That subtle difference shifts the entire dynamic. The person who needs the deal negotiates from weakness. The person who is willing to walk away negotiates from strength. Detached desire gives you that strength in every area of life. It allows you to say, I prefer this outcome. I will work toward it, but I remain grounded regardless. This mindset removes fear of failure, and when fear is removed, performance improves naturally. You take smarter risks. You speak more clearly. You think more rationally. And ironically, the less you cling, the more you attract. The Stoics did not eliminate ambition. They eliminated emotional dependency. When you mastered detached desire, you stop chasing life anxiously, and you begin moving through it with controlled power. That is where manifestation truly begins. The second Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is mastering the present moment. Marcus Aurelius constantly reminded himself to confine his attention to the now, not because the future didn't matter, but because the only place power exists is in this moment. Most people live in mental time travel. They replay past mistakes. They rehearse future disasters. They imagine outcomes that haven't happened, and while their body is here, their mind is somewhere else. But manifestation does not happen in the past. It does not happen in the future. It happens in the present. When your attention is divided, your perception weakens. You miss subtle opportunities. You overlook conversations that could shift your direction. You ignore intuition. You react instead of respond. Presence sharpens awareness. When you are fully engaged in the current moment, your thinking becomes precise. Your listening improves. Your timing becomes better. You notice openings that distracted minds never see. There is also a deeper layer to this. When you live in anxiety about the future, your nervous system stays tense. Tension narrows your thinking. It pushes you toward impulsive decisions. It creates emotional noise. But when you anchor yourself in the present, your body stabilizes. Your breathing slows. Your mind clears. Clarity creates better action. Better action creates better outcomes. The most influential individuals are deeply present. When they speak to someone, they are fully there. When they work, they focus entirely. When they rest, they truly rest. That level of focus generates power, and power attracts opportunity. Every moment gives you something you can control. Your effort, your attitude, your response. When you consistently master what is in front of you, Momentum builds naturally. The Stoics understood that the future is shaped by disciplined present action, not by anxious anticipation. If you control this hour, you strengthen this day. If you control this day, you influence your direction. If you influence your direction, you influence your destiny. Manifestation is not about obsessing over tomorrow. It is about mastering right now. The third Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is learning to accept resistance. Most people see obstacles as signs that something is wrong. They assume difficulty means they are off track. The Stoics saw resistance differently. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Obstacles are not interruptions of the path. They are the path. Resistance is inevitable. Delays will happen. Rejection will happen. Unexpected setbacks will happen. The question is not whether you will face obstacles, it is how you will interpret them. When you fight reality emotionally, you drain your energy. Complaining, blaming, or resisting what already exists does not change the situation. It only weakens your position within it. Acceptance is not surrender. It is strategic clarity. When you accept that something has happened, your mind becomes free to ask better questions. How can I use this? What is this teaching me? How is this strengthening me? Every obstacle refines you. Pressure builds resilience. Failure builds awareness. Delay builds patience. These qualities increase your capacity, and increased capacity allows you to handle greater opportunity when it arrives. Think of steel being forged. It does not become strong without heat. It does not become sharp without friction. The very forces that appear destructive are the same forces that shape its strength. Your challenges function the same way. Many people quit the moment resistance appears. That is why few achieve anything substantial. They interpret difficulty as opposition rather than preparation. But when you accept resistance, something shifts inside you. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding intelligently. You become flexible instead of rigid, adaptable instead of frustrated, and adaptability is power. Sometimes what feels like a setback is protection. Sometimes a closed door is redirection. Sometimes delay is preparation. When you stop fighting obstacles and start working with them, you build unshakable resilience. Resilience attracts respect. Respect attracts opportunity. Opportunity creates results. The Stoics did not avoid hardship, they used it. When you master resistance, you stop seeing life as an enemy and start seeing it as training, and a trained mind manifests strength. The fourth Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is reclaiming your inner authority. Epictetus taught something radical. It is not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That insight changes everything. Most people live as if their emotional state is controlled by the outside world. If someone criticizes them, they feel diminished. If they lose money, they feel worthless. If plans fall apart, they feel defeated. They hand their inner stability over to external circumstances. But the Stoics understood that your greatest power lies in your interpretation. You cannot control everything that happens. You cannot control other people's opinions. You cannot control timing or luck. But you can always control how you respond. That control is your authority. When you lose inner authority, you become reactive. Your mood rises and falls with events. Your confidence fluctuates with validation. Your peace disappears whenever something unexpected occurs. But when you reclaim authority, something shifts. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "How will I respond to this?" That shift transforms weakness into strength. Inner authority means you decide what something means. A setback can be failure, or it can be feedback. A rejection can be humiliation, or it can be refinement. A delay can be frustration, or it can be preparation. The event remains the same. Your meaning changes the outcome. When you operate from inner authority, you stop seeking constant reassurance. You no longer need external approval to feel secure. You make decisions based on principles rather than emotions, and that stability becomes magnetic. People trust those who are internally grounded. Opportunities move toward those who remain steady under pressure. Leaders emerge from those who can regulate themselves. The Stoics believed that self-governance is the foundation of real power. If you cannot command your own reactions, you cannot command your direction in life. Manifestation begins with internal order. When your thoughts are disciplined, your emotions controlled, and your actions deliberate, you generate momentum that is not easily disrupted. You may not control circumstances, but you always control your character, and character shapes destiny. Reclaim your authority, and your life begins to align with you. The fifth Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is mastering strategic nan-action. We live in a culture that glorifies constant movement, always doing, always pushing, always reacting. But motion is not the same as progress, and activity is not the same as effectiveness. The Stoics understood timing. Not every situation requires immediate action. Not every opportunity should be chased. Not every emotional impulse deserves a response. Sometimes the most powerful move is restraint. Strategic non-action means you pause when others panic. You observe when others rush. You remain composed when others react emotionally. This is not laziness, it is discipline. When you act from anxiety, your decisions become sloppy. You speak too quickly. You commit too soon. You overextend yourself. You try to force results before the conditions are right, and forced action often creates unnecessary damage. But when you step back and allow clarity to develop, your action becomes precise. Think of a skilled chess player. They do not move pieces simply to appear productive. They wait. They study the board. They calculate. When they move, it is intentional. That patience creates advantage. In life, many people interfere with their own progress because they cannot tolerate uncertainty. They keep pushing, checking, adjusting, doubting. They dig up the seed to see if it's growing. The Stoic approach is different. You prepare thoroughly. You act when necessary. Then you allow space. There is strength in waiting for alignment. There is wisdom in letting emotions settle before speaking. There is power in choosing silence when others expect reaction. Strategic non-action creates clarity. Clarity improves decisions. Improved decisions produce better results. Sometimes the opportunity you want requires you to become still enough to recognize it. Sometimes the breakthrough happens after you stop forcing it. Restraint sharpens awareness. It prevents wasted energy. It protects your focus. The person who cannot pause is controlled by impulse. The person who can pause is controlled by principle. And principle builds power. When you master when to act and when not to, you eliminate unnecessary chaos from your life. You stop exhausting yourself with frantic effort. You begin moving with intention. And intention manifests results. The sixth Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is practicing deliberate gratitude. Gratitude is often misunderstood as simple positivity. The Stoics viewed it as something far more strategic. It is a way of training perception, and perception shapes reality. When your mind constantly focuses on what is missing, it conditions itself to see lack everywhere. You notice what you don't have. You compare. You feel behind. That mindset generates dissatisfaction and impatience leads to poor decisions. But when you consciously focus on what is already working in your life, something powerful shifts. Your nervous system stabilizes. Your thinking becomes clearer. You operate from sufficiency rather than deficiency. Seneca warned that the person who always craves more is poor, even if surrounded by wealth. Why? Because craving creates a permanent state of shortage in the mind. Gratitude interrupts that cycle. When you recognize what you already possess, your health, your skills, your relationships, your opportunities, you stop operating from desperation. And desperation is one of the biggest obstacles to manifestation. Gratitude creates internal stability. Stability improves performance. Improved performance creates results. There is also a social dimension to this principle. People are naturally drawn to those who appreciate them. When you express sincere gratitude, you strengthen relationships. Strong relationships create opportunities. Opportunities create growth. Gratitude builds goodwill. Goodwill expands networks. Networks open doors. But this practice must be genuine. It is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about acknowledging that even within difficulty, something is still working in your favor. Even challenges carry lessons. Even setbacks carry information. Even slow progress carries growth. When you train your mind to see these elements, you increase resilience, you increase patience, you increase confidence. Then confidence is attractive. The Stoics practiced negative visualization, imagining losing what they valued, not to create fear but to deepen appreciation. When you truly understand how much you already have, you stop chasing from insecurity. You begin pursuing from strength. Gratitude multiplies what you notice, and what you notice expands. The more you appreciate, the more capable you become of receiving more. That is why gratitude is not passive. It is leverage, and leverage manifests results. The seventh Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is developing emotional sovereignty. Most people believe emotions simply happen to them. They say, "That made me angry," or "This situation stressed me out." The Stoics rejected this idea. They understood that emotions are influenced by interpretation, and interpretation is within your control. Emotional sovereignty means you feel emotions without being ruled by them. You do not suppress anger, but you do not let it dictate your behavior. You do not deny fear, but you do not allow it to paralyze your action. You do not ignore disappointment, but you do not let it define your identity. Between stimulus and response, there is a gap. In that gap lies power. Most people react instantly. They speak when emotional. They decide when frustrated. They act when anxious. And those reactions often create consequences that block future opportunity. But when you pause, observe the emotion, and choose your response deliberately, everything changes. You gain stability. Stability builds trust. People rely on those who remain composed under pressure. Leaders are not those who feel the least. They are those who control the most. Emotional sovereignty also improves judgment. When anger clouds your thinking, you exaggerate threats. When fear dominates your mind, you underestimate yourself. When excitement overwhelms you, you overcommit. But when you regulate your emotional state, your decisions become sharper. Sharper decisions create consistent action. Consistent action builds momentum. Momentum produces results. Your emotional energy is powerful. It fuels motivation, creativity, and drive. But without discipline, it becomes destructive. The Stoics trained themselves to observe emotions as signals, not commands. Ask yourself, what is this emotion teaching me? Is it useful? How long will I allow it to stay? That awareness returns control to you. When you are emotionally sovereign, you cannot be easily manipulated. Criticism does not shatter you. Praise does not inflate you. Pressure does not destabilize you. You remain steady, and steadiness is rare. Rare qualities attract rare opportunities. When you master your emotional world, you create internal order. And internal order reflects outwardly in disciplined action and reliable behavior. The person who governs their emotions governs their direction, and direction determines destiny. Emotional sovereignty is not coldness, it is controlled intensity, and controlled intensity manifests power. The eighth Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is embracing the philosophy of enough. Modern culture teaches constant dissatisfaction, more money, more recognition, more status, more achievement. The message is clear, you are not enough yet. The Stoics challenged this belief directly. Seneca wrote that it is not the man who has too little who is poor, but the man who craves more. Craving creates an endless psychological deficit. No matter how much you accumulate, it never feels sufficient. And when nothing feels sufficient, peace becomes impossible. The philosophy of enough does not mean abandoning ambition. It means separating your self-worth from your external achievements. You can strive for excellence without believing you are incomplete without it. When you believe you are lacking, you operate from insecurity. Insecurity distorts behavior. You overwork to prove yourself. You compare constantly. You compete unnecessarily. You chase validation. That mindset creates tension. But when you recognize that you are already enough, already capable, already worthy, already whole, your pursuit of goals changes. You act from growth rather than deficiency. You pursue improvement rather than approval. You build rather than beg. Contentment is not complacency. It is stability. And stability strengthens decision-making. When you are internally secure, you are not easily shaken by setbacks. A temporary failure does not threaten your identity. A slow month does not destroy your confidence. You remain grounded. Grounded individuals move differently. They negotiate from strength. They take calculated risks. They avoid reckless behavior driven by ego. The philosophy of enough also reduces distraction. When you stop chasing every external symbol of success, you focus on what truly matters: skill, discipline, character, and character compounds over time. Ironically, the less you chase external validation, the more you attract genuine respect. The less you obsess over proving yourself, the more confidently you perform. The Stoics understood that abundance begins in the mind. When you feel internally rich, your actions reflect that richness. You stop acting like someone who is behind. Enough is not about settling. It is about standing firmly in who you already are. From that position, growth becomes powerful rather than frantic. When you master the philosophy of enough, you remove the desperation that blocks progress, and from a place of internal sufficiency, you create external expansion. That is strength, and strength manifests results. The ninth Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is the courage to live and express yourself authentically. Many people block their own progress because they are trying to live according to someone else's expectations. They chase goals they do not truly value. They speak cautiously to avoid criticism. They adjust their personality to gain approval. This creates internal conflict. And internal conflict drains energy. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself not to concern himself with what others say or think unnecessarily. Why? Because constantly monitoring external opinions weakens your focus and divides your attention. When you are not authentic, you are operating from fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of exclusion. Fear-based behavior produces hesitation. It clouds communication. It weakens conviction. And without conviction, opportunities pass you by. Authenticity simplifies everything. When your actions align with your values, you eliminate internal friction. You make decisions faster. You speak more clearly. You move with greater certainty. Certainty is powerful. People are drawn to those who know who they are, not because they are loud or aggressive, but because they are grounded. When you hide your true standards, you attract misaligned opportunities. When you pretend to want what others want, you build a life that does not fit you. But when you express yourself honestly, with discipline and respect, you naturally filter your environment. The wrong paths fall away. The right ones strengthen. Authenticity also strengthens resilience. If criticism arrives, it does not shake you deeply because you are not performing. You are living according to principle. The Stoics valued virtue above popularity. They understood that character outweighs approval. When you operate from character, your actions are guided by internal standards rather than external applause. That stability builds long-term momentum. Manifestation is not about attracting everything. It is about attracting what aligns with you. And alignment requires authenticity. When you have the courage to express your ideas, pursue your true goals, and speak your honest perspective, you send a clear signal. You are not scattered. You are defined. Defined individuals move decisively. Decisive individuals create momentum. Momentum produces results. Authenticity is not rebellion. It is clarity. Clarity strengthens direction. Direction shapes outcomes. When you stop performing and start aligning, your energy consolidates, and consolidated energy manifests power. The 10th Stoic rule that manifests everything you want is trusting timing. Impatience is one of the greatest destroyers of progress. Most people are not defeated by failure. They are defeated by frustration. They expect immediate results. They demand quick validation. They measure success too early. The Stoics understood that life unfolds according to forces larger than individual desire. You control effort. You control preparation. You control discipline. You do not control timing. When you try to force outcomes before they are ready, you create tension. That tension clouds judgment. It leads to rushed decisions, unnecessary risks, and avoidable mistakes. But when you trust timing, your energy stabilizes. Trust does not mean passivity. It does not mean sitting back and doing nothing. It means acting with consistency while releasing obsession over when results appear. There is a difference between persistence and pressure. Persistence is steady. Pressure is anxious. The Stoics believed that every event fits into a larger order. Whether you call it fate, nature, or reason, the principle remains the same. Events unfold when conditions align. Sometimes delay is preparation. Sometimes rejection is redirection. Sometimes slow progress is building foundation. If success arrived before you were ready, you might mismanage it. If opportunity appeared before you had the discipline to sustain it, you might lose it. Timing shapes readiness. When you trust timing, you stop interpreting temporary setbacks as permanent defeat. You remain consistent. You continue refining yourself. You continue improving quietly, and improvement compounds. Impatience creates volatility. Trust creates steadiness. Steady individuals outperform emotional ones over time. When you detach from rigid timelines, you become more observant. You notice alternative opportunities. You adapt without panic. You maintain clarity under delay, and clarity improves performance. The Stoic approach is simple. Do your part fully, Accept what you cannot control. Allow outcomes to mature. When preparation meets opportunity, results emerge naturally. Trust removes unnecessary stress. Stress reduction improves thinking. Improved thinking improves execution. Execution creates progress. You may not decide when the door opens, but you can decide to be ready when it does. And readiness, sustained over time, manifests everything you are capable of receiving.